All right, good afternoon. I call to order the Charlottesville Albemarle Metropolitan Planning Organization Policy Board. Wednesday, August 28th at 4 p.m. And Councilor Oshrin will be joining. She's just outside coming down. So we will go ahead and call the attendance.
Got it. Supervisor Mallett.
Here.
Supervisor Galloway.
Here.
Councilor Pinkston.
Here.
Councilor Oshrin. Mr. Nelson. And Councilor Oshrin.
Here.
Non-voting members, I'm going to call next. Mr. Murphy. Ms. Monteith. Mr. Williams. Mr. Hudson. Mr. Minor.
Standing in for him from DRPT.
Great, thank you, Mr. Hoover. Mr. Koenig. Mr. Condor.
Here.
Christine Jacobs present.
Awesome. And that will move us to staff update. Christine, you're gonna handle that.
Yep, I would just like to make sure I introduce, I know you guys have met Sarah Simba before. Sarah will be the lead staff member for the MPO policy board. And then also wanted to introduce to you Goryan Georgievsky. He has been with the PDC working under a different federal program, but is going to be moving into transportation planning, and he will be the lead staff member for both the MPO technical committee and the CTAC committee. So just wanted to do an introduction of them both.
Welcome.
Thank you.
That will take us to matters from the public. There are folks here wishing to give public comment today. You do, sir? No. So you can please come on up to the podium. You'll state your name and you will have 3 minutes to speak.
I don't think I'll use 3 minutes. My name is John Faltz, 1501 Rugby Road. It feels good to be back here again. Yeah. The only thing I wanted to say is I've been watching county development south of the city, building a new elementary school. And a long thing of mine has been you got to connect the two roads, Avon Street and Fifth Street Extended, and probably through Biscuit Run. I know we have tried to avoid putting roads through parks, but you really got to do it. It's a 5-mile barrier between the two most important roads south of the city. I know we've tried to avoid doing that. We spent 10 years widening Route 29 so as not to build connecting roads. I see that you're doing a lot of roundabouts. The city, the area is going to look like a smallpox. But anyway, if you don't put that road through, you're not doing your duty. That's the big part of it. That's my major. The second thing is I just wanted to introduce myself to you, Ms. Oshrin and Mr. Pinkston, because I'm going to send you an email about some ideas within the city, and I want you to pay attention to it. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Paul. Is there anyone else here who wishes to give public comment? Is there anyone online who wishes to give public comment? All right. We will move on from public comment. So item number 3, we have the review and acceptance of the agenda. Are there any changes to the agenda that need to be made? Seeing none, is there a motion to adopt the agenda? Second. Right, motion's been made and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Great. And then this next item would be, we have included in the packet of the draft of the May 21st, 24 meeting minutes. Any changes, edits need to be made to those minutes?
The only thing I saw, this is trivial, is under Paul the order, I had it starting at 4 and 8 versus.
Wow. No wonder. Right, you had edits.
Noted.
Scrivener's error.
Any other changes? So is there a motion to adopt the 5/21/24 meeting minutes as amended?
Second.
All right, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions?
One.
Right. I would abstain. That will take us to item number 4, new business. And Ms. Akers, you're gonna walk us through these items?
Yes. So legislation that was adopted by the 2024 General Assembly under House Bill 894 and Senate Bill 734 necessitate several changes to the remote electronic participation and all virtual meeting policy. In your packet is both a redlined edited version to the original policy that the MPO Policy Board adopted, as well as a clean version. The original was adopted September of 2022. So changes include within the new policy, the ability to hold all virtual public meetings limited to 2 meetings per calendar year or 50% rounded up to the next whole number, whichever is greater. So for instance, with the policy board, you all meet 6 times annually. Up to 3 of those can be all virtual meetings if you so choose. They do have to be posted publicly that the meeting is going to be held in an all virtual format. You cannot hold 2 consecutive all virtual meetings. You have to have an in-person meeting in between. And you have to provide public access to the all virtual meetings through electronic communication means. There are expanded provisions within the new policy related to audio and visual technology. So when a all virtual meeting is being held, audio and visual have to be available in order to establish the quorum. So they have to be able to see and hear all of the voting members of the body. At any point that a voting member turns off their camera or turns off their sound, the camera off indicates that they are not present in the meeting during that time. So audio and visual have to be left intact anytime action is taken in order for that quorum to be in effect. The other addition is that it does now require an annual adoption of the policy rather than only if changes are made to it. So at the first meeting of the fiscal year, you'll see the policy come back on an annual basis. So inside of your packet, you have copies of all of these. The recommended staff motion would be to adopt the remote electronic participation and all virtual meeting policy as presented. We're happy to take questions.
We all decide to meet virtually as well as a policy, that if a person needs, single person needs to meet, can't attend physically, how we incorporate it into those.
The policy that you have in your packet actually speaks to both of those. So there are not changes related to when a person is remotely participating in an in-person quorum meeting. Those rules are still the same. They have to state their reason. They have to notify the chair in advance. They have limits on the number of personal matter exemptions. All of those stay the same within the existing policy. The changes apply to when the board determines that it wants to be in an all virtual capacity, what rules apply when everybody is accessing online.
Any other questions?
I guess my only question is, if once internet fails, then calling in by phone can be established. Or
Yes.
not, even though there's no visual available. For those of us in the country whose internet disappears. So anyway, that's.
If video fails, you are considered absent during that meeting and the vote will not count if you are only participating through audio. That has been our interpretation. I can certainly follow up with David to see if there's been more discussion about that.
That's great. In a previous meeting where this was being discussed, if you turn it off, but if it fails, it's different. So I'm still.
There is also a provision in there that should the public lose access to the meeting, so for some reason, if they should drop off, then you have to actually go into recess until that connection is reestablished, because if it's an all virtual meeting and that is the only way that they can participate, you cannot continue the meeting without them having access to that meeting.
Them as a group.
Collectively, if it drops, not if an individual falls off the meeting, we don't do it. We are required in the notice, when you say that this is being held in an all virtual format, we are required to include a real-time way to communicate. So whether that is a phone number or an email, so that we can be notified if the mass public is no longer able to access the meeting, so that we can call it into recess until it's reestablished.
in my understanding, in an all virtual meeting, in that scenario, if you were required to have a quorum and you drop out for whatever reason, the meeting does have to pause until it is reestablished. And my understanding is audio would be okay if the visual piece was not to their fault.
If the video fails, yes, did I misunderstand your
Well,
question?
that was.
Yes, you are correct on that one.
But if
Yeah,
you
I apologize.
Reestablish like both your audio and your visual line, and you were needed for the forum, then the meeting has to stop until it's re-established. All right, that being said, then we need a motion to adopt the what do you find this, our remote electronic participation in all virtual meeting policy.
Second.
Right, we have a motion to adopt and a second. Any further questions or discussion? All right, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Everybody forward. Is there something else?
I want to read that sentence to make sure that I haven't confused anybody. Is that
Yeah.
okay? I apologize.
Yeah.
It actually says that when any member of the CAMPO or any of its committees has audio visual technology available and electronic communication is being used to establish a quorum, that member shall be considered absent from any portion of a meeting during which visual communication with the member is voluntarily disconnected or otherwise fails, during which audio communication involuntary fails. So if you are not able to be seen, you are not counting towards that quorum.
Even if it's technical.
Even if it fails or you turn it off, either one of those, you are considered absent during that time.
Good. Good clarification.
Somewhere, I think that it states the reestablishment.
It's in there.
I would just hope that under the commission's umbrella, everybody's, I'm sure you're going over that with everybody, it's consistent with everybody.
Every decision-making body has to adopt the policy. Every advisory board is briefed on the policy that was adopted by the board that they are advising. So all of our committees are seeing this policy.
That will take us to item 5, the highway systems functional classification presentation and recommended action in assembly. Do we have that?
But I'm gonna ask Christine to share the slides for me.
You did ask me that ahead of time.
Sorry. Yep.
Okay.
So this is the federal highway functional classification presentation by the Charlottesville Albemarle Metropolitan Planning Organization. I mean, it's a dark curtain because it's just informational. We're all in this together. So this is just an introduction to the federal highway functional classification. And if you looked into your packet, there is a comprehensive guide provided by VDOT. And in that guide, which is in your packet, you would see why is functional classification important? Why do we have to have it? What is functional classification? How does VDOT use its functional classification? You will see different programs and plans that are affected by federal functional classifications and who maintains all the record of systems that are classified.
Yeah, that's pretty speak up just a bit. It's the fan here, the age of my ears.
I will try to speak loud. I hope I don't scream, but if I do, then. Yeah, I was saying this is just an introduction to the topic, just a high level overview, just over the top general idea of what is functional classification, why do we have to have it, how does VDOT use its functional classification, what are the programs and plans that are affected by federal functional classification, and you can find all this, the summary of all this in your packet that was provided by VDOT. It's a comprehensive guide that VDOT provided. So functional classification is a process by which streets, highways are grouped into different classes or systems according to different functions they are intending to serve. Of the approximately 4 million miles of roads in the United States, all those roads need to be classified, and some of these roads are considered more important than others. So it's important to classify to determine which level of government will be responsible for what. Classification also influences design, it affects how roads are funded, and it also impacts federal aid. So looking at next slide, that was the the following slide. So that one, this is an important slide that you're welcome to look into yourself in your free time. It just summarizes the need to develop a new guide, and it all came from VDOT. Federal aid is the federal aid system is mature. Classification is more comprehensive today than it used to be before, and we all know how technology is constantly changing. Classification also, the coding has also been very simplified, meaning all functional classification categories now exist in both rural and urban areas. Therefore, guidance needs to connect with census in order to meet the Federal Highway Administration's guidelines. Next slide. So there are different ways in which Federal Highway Administration identifies federal functional classification. I think I'm gonna say FFC instead of federal functional classification. I'm gonna refer to FFC, so that FHWA sets guidelines to preserve consistency between all the states. And in terms of the Commonwealth of Virginia, the last updates to the FFC occurred in 2014. There are two sections on roadway functional classifications, which include roadway classifications and other information, which can all be found in your guide. So I'm still on that slide. Yeah, so the Federal Highway Administration sets functional classification. They set these guidelines to preserve consistency. There are many reasons why FHWA must set these guidelines. Some of them: uniformity, data collection and analysis, intersects connectivity, safety, and efficiency. So here are some examples, next slide, of so there are 7 functional classifications for the FHWA. Interstates, other freeways and expressways, other principal arterials, minor arterials, major and minor collectors, and then local roads. I do have an example of a tree that goes through different kinds of roads and where they're located within the FHWA systems. But before I get to that, I wanted no, we've skipped one slide.
You want me to go back to it?
Yes, please.
Be happy to.
Slide 6.
I wonder, I was off one from you.
Yeah,
Yep, that one.
I wasn't looking there. Yeah, this is the most important slide here.
It was up, but she didn't say her points on this one.
Oh, I didn't, yeah.
Yep.
So what is the function of a road? Like we saw, there are approximately 4 million miles throughout the US, and all of those need a functional classification. Therefore, some of the roads that are considered important than others. However, they all serve different roles. So some roads provide mobility, others provide land access, and the other classification of roads provide a balance between land access and mobility. For roads that provide mobility, we have interstates and arterials. Arterials provide the highest mobility and the lowest degree of land access. And these include principal and minor arterials. The second category is the categories of roads that provide land access, and these are local roads. The last one obviously is a balance between the two. They provide somewhat land access and some mobility. I'm trying to see if people are lost or people are following.
I'm just trying to correlate in my mind what we've been calling collectors and arterials here in the county, and I will need to learn more because it doesn't quite fit yet.
Like I should know. Yeah, the next slide.
Jump up here, wherever.
Streets.
This is where.
Yeah, the tree.
Mhm.
The tree of functional class. So the Federal Highway Administration uses a decision tree to help determine the functional classification of roads. This decision tree helps in guiding planners through a series of questions and criteria to classify roads based on their function and usage. There are some steps that are usually followed in putting this tree together. First, it's important to identify the road's primary function. Would this road be arterial, local, or interstate, or minor, or major? Second, there's need to assess the traffic volume and different patterns for different roads. There's need to evaluate connectivity between the roads. They consider land use and development. Then there comes a review process, and all those steps need to fall within the FHWA guidelines. And in the next slide, if we can go, the FHWA includes other guidelines to follow the classification of different roads. These are called other functional classification information, and this is also in your comprehensive guide. I wanted to give this example to show an example of a correct functional classification of the roads and a difference between an incorrect way of classifying a road. For instance, the new functional classification system addresses route connectivity to ensure that any principal arterial maintain a route continuity in a very closed loop system. For example, as you can see in this figure, a principal arterial may not end into a lower functional classification. So a principal arterial must always connect with another principal arterial rather than connect with any other minor arterial. Are we tracking? Good, thank you. So when classifying roadways, care must be taken to ensure that this rule is followed and that all principal arterials maintain the closed loop system. And more information can be found online. I wanted to emphasize the importance of the national highway system, because the national highway system is a network of strategic highways in the US designed to serve the country's economy, defense, and military needs. And this is also important to the functional classification system. The national highway system includes interstate highway systems, other arterials, strategic highway network, major connectors, and intermodal systems. For the purposes of this presentation, I think one slide after that, before that. Yes, this is one example for the process so the process for making functional classification changes on existing roads for local government in MPO regions. So that would be our region, for example. What would be the process to make a change to an existing road for this region, for instance? So the first step would be in case a town, a city, or a county wanted to request a change, then they would request a change by filling out a VDOT functional classification form request. They would then, after that, the local governments will submit that request to the MPO or the PDC director for approval. And the PDO, the PDC or the MPO will give a recommendation for approval. Do I need to have a pointer?
Nope, you're okay. We just got notice that somebody was trying to get into the meeting, but it's not popping up on my screen as them in the waiting room, so I apologize for the disruption. Just give me a second to make sure we're not getting a notice on here. We're not. I apologize.
So this is an example for making functional classification changes on existing roads coming from a local government in an MPO region. The first step would be for the city, the county to formally request VDOT by filling out a form. The second step would be for the local government to submit the request to the MPO committee and for the director of the MPO to approve and give a recommendation for approval. After that, the third step would be for the VDOT district planner to provide approval to the VDOT central office, which is the Virginia Transportation and Mobility Planning Office, for approval or denial. And from there, the TMPD, which is the central office in Richmond, will send that request to the Federal Highway Administration for review, which will then approve or deny that request. And the second example was, should the request come from VDOT, it would be the same, coming from VDOT back to the city and the MPO. They would recommend it to the TMPD, which will send it to the FHWA for review. And after that, FHWA will recommend or deny the request and the change will occur. And my final slide was to talk about classification for future roads and why these are important. So classifying future roads is very important for several reasons. Some of them being planning and development, funding allocations, safety and efficiency, consistency, and so on and so forth. But we know that while functional classification is based on the current roadway use, it is also very important to focus on classifying future roadways early in the planning process. And like we all know, functional classification helps determine eligibility for funding from many federal funding sources. And this helps in maximizing potential for future funding as well. So like we saw from this presentation, these guidelines from FHWA allow VDOT to assign a functional classification for roads that are scheduled to be constructed within 4 years. And for this reason, it is recommended that VDOT include any new roadways that are included in the 6-year statewide transportation improvement plan for construction for functional classification. And that will conclude my high-level overview. I hope it was not too confusing, but it's a very complex topic. And I will pass it on to Ms. Jacobs to pass it on to the next step to review the staff memo and the resolution of supports and the suggested attached roads to be functionally classified.
Great, thank you. So VDOT is conducting this statewide because of the decennial census. And so the last update that occurred in 2014 was following the 2010 census. And so it triggers another review at the 10-year mark, which is why we are where we are. VDOT staff has to coordinate that along with its MPOs to make sure that local staff are reviewing the classifications as they are in the proposed update. We presented this at the May meeting to MPO technical committee. We then sent all of the information that we needed to all of the local staff so that they could do a deep dive and do their review. They sent revisions to us as MPO staff to look at. We sent them on to VDOT. We were given the timeline that this all needed to be completed by September, which is why it is on this agenda, because we don't meet again until October. However, we just received the feedback from VDOT central office staff yesterday. And so what staff would like to do is staff would like to make a recommendation that you all defer any action on this until a final proposed map can be put before you. And so that all of the differences between staff recommendations and VDOT's approvals are in final form before you take any action. So in your packet, you'll see that there is a memo of both types, recommending and not recommending. Staff is going to recommend that you do defer on this until we can bring a final format to you.
So we wouldn't vote on either memo at this point.
Correct. You would just make a motion to defer action until your October meeting, when we can bring to you the map in its final form, a spreadsheet that shows here were the requested revisions. These were the ones that were adopted. These are the ones that were declined. And then you all can at that time take action on the resolution that you were involved in the process, and it was coordinated with the MPO.
So for example, on this chart on page
Yes,
31,
yes,
Bailey Road, Prospect Avenue, Fifth Street, Northwest. Minor collector supports this request. I guess it's going from local road to minor collector.
yes.
What's the process by which it was even?
Local staff in the city of Charlottesville for that one
Yeah.
put in the request based on the roadway characteristics, all of that, that actually should be reclassified from local to minor collector. And so then VDOT's TMPD office reviews that entire spreadsheet and does their analysis to say, do they agree or disagree with those changes? And then they provide feedback of the ones that they will move forward and the ones that they will not. And that's what I want to be able to bring back to you all before you make any, take any action.
So the conversations have happened between VDOT and Safe Ben for the city,
Yes,
but there's more discussion in staff.
yes, we want to make sure that the map aligns with the actual changes that are being discussed to be recommended, so that you all are actually taking action on the final map with all of the changes updated in that map.
So the fact that we're a month later or whatever, won't be able to.
We are told that that is okay because it is not on our team that made it delayed. We also connected with other MPO and TPO staff, and they are also deferring. They're not putting it before their policy board until they have the final as well. So we are aligned with our peers on this one. And have been in close communication with VDOT through this entire process. You know, we were trying to move it as quickly as we could through the timeline, and it is where it is. So I don't recommend action until it's in final form.
So I'm looking at some of
Yeah.
the adjustments both on the map and in the chart.
Yeah.
And some of them are becoming kind of larger scale roads and some of them are turning into smaller scale roads, right? Not everything is in the bigger direction. Just to,
Correct.
okay.
So for example, 9th Street Southwest, Charlottesville staff, right now, its current classification is a minor collector. The recommendation was made that that be a local road in its classification. So yep, it's in
I
either
wanted to make
direction.
sure that was.
Questions? So I don't know who best to answer, but obviously there's a criteria because there are local staff, VDOT, everybody's, analyzing it to make sure that it fits. I presume that's the protection against just legislatively trying to change something because you want it to be change something from higher to lower or reverse. I'll give you an example. If I could change something from higher to lower, Rio Road East after Parkway goes down. I think that's a minor arterial road. But anyway, as a politician, for people living along that way, it'd be nice if that wasn't such a busy road, but this pragmatically doesn't really help any of these sort of, there's other mechanisms to get the safety and things in there that are needed because the criteria isn't really changing even if the legislative body wants it. That makes sense.
I think that there's so many checks that goes all the way up the MPO reviews it. District staff reviews it, and central office staff reviews it, so it's.
There's criteria, it can't be legislatively maneuvered just to try to impact either a political gain or a funding gain or something.
Well, it seems to be the case too, that it's more like updating the facts on the ground. Like the way road is functioning now versus perhaps whether it's wanted to or not.
Yes. I think the visual of this tree is the first time that I broke out arterial and non-arterial that way. I've always seen them as one straight trunk. So that's actually helpful. Because then it looks like you hit non-arterial, and then if it continues to escalate, it jumps over into the other tree. Would that be the right interpretation of how that
Can you
escalates?
put that?
So you're a local road, you jump to a collector. You
Right,
go from minor to major, major to non-arterial, and then you jump over to somewhere in the arterial if it continues to go up. And then same back down. That's actually helpful. I've never understood it that way. And did you have?
I have a philosophical question. So how does all of this integrate with VDOT's explanation that they're trying to be more context sensitive for roadways in places where you have very high density residential or pedestrians and versus the vehicle throughput context? So my example that I always use when I'm trying to get a slower speed and improvements in 250 West in Rose is, well, 250 is 25 all the way through Stanton. Why can't it be 35 right where we are? So I've never got an answer that helps me with that, but is this related at all, or is this strictly mathematics and I should get over thinking about context sensitiveness, and I don't do that anymore. Maybe that's the level I appreciate administration. I guess so, because Sean is looking very confused. He's never heard that term before.
Mr. Kingston described, it's almost classifying the roadway as it's being used rather than applying an aspirational goal to the road.
Or the reverse, because when things have escalated dramatically over 10 years, that what used to be a very context sensitive environment and was safe to drive on and to walk on is now a through road. And not safe for any other of the uses, even from, just a few years ago. So, yeah, okay, that helps me to know that to get it.
Chuck, that's just the reclassification in this context, that doesn't mean that road can't ever be redesigned safer.
But except this is the existing federal standard, and that's what they're gonna stick with. So it does get in our way, I think, to do something different.
But changes can be requested between the 10-year decennial. So as those on the ground changes are occurring, you can request through that other chart that she showed, you can request that they consider a reclassification of that road.
And that might be because a land use change happened or mass transit happened, so.
I forgot I'm raising my hand. Sorry.
Did you have something to add?
Yeah, I skipped one slide actually, because I didn't see, and it gives examples of like some example of reason of why a road's function could change. So all of those, or all these are not the only examples to be considered. That slide, I think that's at slide 12. So I think before that, it says requesting changed that slide. So VDOT will assign all public roads within the Commonwealth, as we know, based on criteria and guidance by FHWA. And the functional classification assigned to a particular roadway is based on its function. Eventually, over time, the function of a particular road may change, and thus will require that its functional classification should also change. So VDOT received many requests, and the basis of some requests was not on the road's function, but for other reasons. So the channel to request a functional classification change differ based on the nature of the request and the person or the entity that making that request. That's the two examples. And some of those examples include, let's say there is a new parallel facility being built that better serves through the region like traffic, while the old facility now predominantly serves local traffic, will be resulting in needing the lower functional classification on the old road. For instance, over time, if a road widens and traffic volumes significantly increases on the road, that could be another reason to request functional change. The regional significance of a roadway might increase, which would then result in a need to increase the functional classification of the road. For instance, regional activity centers that are developed along a particular road, increasing the importance of a road for a regional mobility, resulting in a need to increase the functional classification on the road, could also be another example. Another example could be when a road is extended and connected to a higher functional classification road. This would require that the existing road to be upgraded to a higher functional classification. Or a road could be disconnected by development from a higher functional classification roads, which would then require that existing roads be downgraded to a lower functional classification. And that's where I think in the examples that were submitted by localities, some roads are being upgraded and other roads are being downgraded. And I think one example that I thought of was the going down 29 north, coming south, there was a chicken place there.
Sure.
And traffic always backs up there. I think that's the only example I've heard people give, and that could be an example here. Christine is laughing, but I told her I'd say this.
And I said, don't bring up Chicken Row.
So that,
Charlottesville chicken strip.
There you go.
that could be an example, that would cause a request to change the functional classification.
From that example, there's no way it's gonna change, because 29 is
No.
a way of significance and
It
all that
cannot.
stuff, it's just toast right away.
Yeah.
So, it's not the chicken thing, that would be the only solution, don't waste anything.
Yeah, but there are also examples for which a road can, like a request would not be accepted. And this would be, you cannot request to change a functional classification. You cannot request to upgrade a road's functional classification for adding funding sources, for instance. That cannot be accepted. An example to upgrade a road's functional classification cannot be accepted if it's to increase its priority in receiving improvements. Like, so somebody was giving an example, so that is not an acceptable example. Or a road cannot be downgraded to relax design for access management and so on and so forth. Things like that.
That happens a lot, but people think that it's supposed to reduce standards, especially development.
Oh,
Yeah, so that will not pass. Or if you're seeking to be eligible for traffic calming measures, functional classification cannot be changed based on that as well.
So I have a question about that. So let's say we are talking about the stretch of 250 that goes through Crozet, and we wanted to turn that into a boulevard and trees and have it be a place where people slow down, but it's classified as a minor arterial. What does that process look like if you want to change the streetscape of that to make it more neighborly and less like more of a street, less of a road?
My simple answer is fill the form, submit to VDOT, they do their job. I don't know. Yeah.
If the point is traffic calming,
Yeah, then.
that you need to reclassify in order to do a traffic calming project.
Probably not. I don't know,
Or
but
can you just do the traffic calming project anyway, and then you're like, oh, now it's different, now it needs a
That's the question, how would you do that?
well, we do now have a pedestrian crossing.
Right, because VDOT would be responsible for it.
I mean, I'm just asking how we fund it.
Well, yeah, I don't know, that's what I'm asking.
And so I mean,
How is
you would
that-
have to have a genesis
what
of
is
a
that
project
process?
based on the characteristics of the road that's existing, whether or not the department would support that. And if you wanted to try to build it with county funds or city funds under a permit, then we would have a discussion.
So what would that process look like if you wanted to turn that into less of a highway and more of a street?
It would be called-
I might be able to offer some insight.
I was just gonna say we have a hand raised. He beat me to it. Yep,
Hi.
go ahead.
I'm Mitch. I'm with Department of Rail and Public Transportation. We currently have our multimodal design guidelines on our website, and that's using VDOT's existing process under their urban road manual. And so you can do a street plan, and it's through a VDOT approval process, but it's a little more comprehensive, and you can do things like changing the design of a road or roadways or network without reclassification per se. So I can definitely send those materials in the chat too.
Well, they can get it. and send it out.
You can capture everything, right?
The whole
The rest is-
conversation, I think it's level on the records about what we're talking about, what the type of project is and how we can move forward.
For roads that are a smaller classification, do they have more, leeway to do redesigns without involving as many steps as a road with a higher classification?
In my experience, it is the functional classification really doesn't change, if you want to do traffic, I mean, anywhere.
Yeah.
There's a traffic calming process you must go through. I don't think any of our states, because it's a smoke, maybe a through it, maybe, it says you can't do this.
I mean, we, based on somebody's only, arterial, we're not gonna look at traffic calming, period, anyway, so. There are traffic calming guidelines, and then within those guidelines, it tells you which other type of roads that we would look at, if we're gonna traffic calm.
And traffic calming would be different than pedestrian infrastructure or
Yeah.
other types of things, even though pedestrian infrastructure. I guess you can make an argument that thing.
We don't, no, it's not correct.
So,
That's true.
Well, how about some projects?
well, the people.
I guess the genesis of my line of questioning is, does increasing the class, not increasing, because they're all, does,
Upgrading. Sorry.
climbing that chart to a bigger and bigger road, does that constrain redevelopment in any way? Where something was a minor arterial and it has the ability to become these different things, and now it's a principal arterial.
So
You
just-
can't do as many things to it.
It's the characteristics of the road and user, so one would think the higher the classification, the more traffic, so if development were to come in order to accommodate the additional traffic they're going to have to put on that road, they're going to have to look at additional upgrades, so you could kind of correlate the higher the classification of the roadway, the more improvements that would potentially be needed to for development. Is that true?
Well, so I'm still stuck on your example of 250, and I was there recently and stopped at the stoplight. And it was just when school was getting out, and so there was a huge number of students who were crossing this road to get back to the town side of Rose. And do you know where this is? You know where we're talking about? Yeah, and so it's this barren stretch of roadway that also is a high pedestrian traffic area. And so if you did want to add trees and an island in the middle and all of that, would it becoming a higher classification without changing the actual structure it is affect the ability to do anything like
Mm-mm.
that? Okay.
It isn't, we're putting in a treatment out. Isn't that where we're proposing?
There's a roundabout.
Yeah.
I can take a stab at this. We could add a median to 250 through Crozet. You're just gonna have to widen the road to do it. Because right now it's a 2-lane road with turn lanes. There's no place to put a lane in Island. I mean, it's like 29 north through northern Albemarle County. They've got a wide median with street trees in the middle of it. We can do that on any road. It's just you got to meet the criteria. 250 through Crozet, it's also, if there's a major incident on 81, on 64, we're going to route traffic along that corridor to still allow the traffic to flow through the corridor. So that could be an issue that we're going to have to deal with. The example Ann was talking about west of through 250 through Stanton District, that doesn't parallel an interstate, so it is a lower functional classification of roads, so it gives you a little bit more flexibility with that corridor. So some of these are you still have a lot of flexibility with what you can do from a design standard. The width of the lanes and some of the features that would have to be maintained, and we typically don't increase too many to principal arterial. Minor arterial is typically what we have. To go to principal arterial, it would have to go to the become an NHS route, and we don't have too many increases to that system. So the highest level for most of the roads is minor arterial. And to go back to another question you asked about doing something in the middle, we did process some changes for Albemarle County to upgrade 250 East from a major collector to a minor arterial, because in their comprehensive plan, they basically, their entry corridors have to be minor arterial facilities. So we actually got that one upgraded all the way to the 15 in Fluvanna in the interim cycle. So we can change these periodically. There's a process to go through to do that. Hopefully that helps with some of your questions and answers.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chuck.
Great, any other comments or questions on this one? Okay, we need a motion to defer.
Action on the resolution.
Second, any further discussion? All right, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Great. Down to you. That will take us to item 6, Transportation Improvement Program. Shannon's here to go over that item.
Thank you.
Adjustments.
Yeah, these are just informational. There's no action that needs to be taken from the board. And the nature of all 3 of these adjustments are to put in the actual amount as opposed to the budgetary amounts. So that in table 101, cat 0001, that table for operating assistance, they added in the fiscal year 2025 amounts. So it went from 2 million to almost 3 million to 5.5 million. And so it just was like a clerical change. And then the next change is cat 0009, which they just added in the actual funding allocations for that too. And then the last one is TJPDC 1, and that was for the mobility management program. And they added in the money for fiscal year 2025. We put it into fiscal year 2024. We added those 2 together because it's a federal program, and because of the calendar year, it's like we have to apply to the state, and then the state has to apply to the federal, so it just kind of goes into 2024, but it's and that's all I have for you.
Thank you. Any questions for the chair? All right, so, thank you. That'll take us to item number 7, VDOT update on projects. Mr. Proctor, you're going to walk us through.
Chuck, would you like me to share your presentation, or would you like to do it?
I can do it. I was trying to find the share button.
Great.
Let me get to the right screen. Okay. Can you see my screen? Okay, yeah, I want to give you an update on the smart scale applications. All were submitted in August, and we've been going through the validation period. All of the ones except for Fifth Street in this area have been validated. We're still waiting on the Fifth Street final estimate before we can actually finalize that application. But basically, these are the three MPO projects and the 4 county projects. I'll go through them quickly and give you the cost estimates that we've got in the system right now that were done by the district L&D staff. Like I said, we're finishing validation, and most of these are validated except for Fifth Street from the district perspective. Here's the DDI concept at Fifth Street. Like I said, we're still waiting on a cost estimate, so I don't have that value, but nothing's really changed from the last presentation where we updated you guys with that information. It does provide the shared use path connection to the trail system, as well as connection to the sidewalk on the west end or the south end. Next is the Pantops. This one has the sidewalk and pedestrian improvements at Rolkin Road. And then at Peter Jefferson Parkway, we're actually doing some intersection improvements. We're closing the crossover at the Hampton or the Hilton Inn, and then we're adding the park and ride lot on the north side with a bus circulation lane. Hopefully we can route the bus through there once this gets funded, and just try to alleviate some of the traffic going into the city, since we lost the other park and ride lot at the shopping center there by the Free Bridge. The cost of this project is $36 million for the combination of the two locations. Any questions about that?
Where was the park and ride before?
There was a park and ride lot in the parking lot to the shopping center on this south side of 250 between Stony Point and the bridge. But they basically didn't want the parking spots there anymore. So we didn't have a location for a while. There is a park and ride lot up at the park just north of 250 off of 20, but it's not utilized because it closes at 6 o'clock at dark, and it's not very convenient for people to get to that park and ride lot.
How well utilized was the one in the Rose's Food Lion Shopping Center?
Was the times I went through there, it was full most of the time. We just had spaces identified in the parking lot, but they were always full.
Okay. Cool.
And they were at the back, so it wasn't they were shopping, but there were out parcels there that could have been going to in addition to that. But there were always cars parked in those locations.
What's the primary cost driver on this project?
Right away. We're having to buy this big parcel up here to the north. You can see the right of way cost on this one's $8 million. And then $11 million for construction. But the right-of-way cost is the big ticket item.
Did we talk to the Giant parking lot folks?
No, we did not.
So there's potentially parking spots there we could use instead of building a whole new parking lot?
Possibly, it's just the utility of it. We don't necessarily have control on those spots as much as we do with a lot itself. And like I said, for this one, we're actually building the bus circulating lane with the bus shelter, and so the bus can circulate through, pick up people and leave. Which in those kind of lots, we're just getting spots that they want to provide us to put signs up and said park and ride.
So I guess I'm gonna ask a question just out here bluntly. Are we having cold feet about parking ride?
No, I love the idea. I'm just wondering if we haven't, that is an expensive project, and if there is a lot that's being underutilized across the street.
And I will say that this project would have been funded last round. Because it was recommended for funding, but the District Avenue roundabout project had a higher priority, so it was swapped out with this one for funding. So I'm hoping that this one scores as well this time as it did last time and we get it funded.
I mean, I'm just reacting to, I'm used to seeing what these projects cost, and these are, you know, for a project like this, $36 million. Wow, it seemed, you know, comparing it over 7 years, I mean, I know there's been upticks and there's been more, but I'm like, really? So that's my job, is to say, really?
Especially when there's a parking lot across the street.
Well, I mean, there's downsides to going up, that knowing and all the changes that are coming in the corridor, that I wouldn't necessarily even think the Giant's a good solution, although it might be a cost effective one, same reason for Roses even further down. And they have to do with how it flows to and from. And how the buses. All right, thank you.
All right, next is Barracks Road. This is the corridor wide project, which includes the roundabout at Georgetown, the interchange roundabouts, as well as the shared use path along the entire length of the project. This is a shocker for the cost estimate. This is $129 million. Very expensive project. So I'm not sure how this one's going to compete. We'll just have to wait and see. It is submitted by the MPO, so it's getting going after the high priority funding. So it's competing against the other projects across the state for the statewide pot of money.
What's to see in this construction? So 16 million, this is just purchasing right away until the 16 million uninflated.
Is, I know roundabouts kind of have to be connected for them to work and not have a choke point somewhere, but, I mean, I don't know what other projects that this is going up against, and will the size of it be scary, and is there a way to break this into smaller projects and submit at the same time so you don't have to wait another cycle, or like, how does that, is there a strategy?
It's too late to do that right now. What we would end up doing is looking at it. If it's not funded, we would go back and reevaluate to see what can we do differently that would help get this project across the finish line.
And the smart,
There's also, this is the full corridor, there's also separate projects that have the east and the western portions. Applied for separate.
Yeah.
okay.
And then it's-
I was that's basically my question,
Yeah.
is do we have to wait for a whole nother cycle to, okay.
And it's important to note that the MPO can only apply for certain aspects of this or the entire thing. It would have to be a local application if it was cut into smaller pieces.
County one is just Georgetown.
That's right.
Thanks.
Yeah, the next slide is the other application that the MPO has, which is one of the piece of this project. This is the other MPO application, which is just the interchange and then the shared use path going into the city. But it's still a $92 million project. So it's part of this is there are some total takes and right of way on the west side. There's like 2 or 3 parcels on the west side on the northwest quadrant and 1 parcel or 2 on the south quadrant. There's 1 property owner, but they own multiple parcels. So it's 1 house that and a vacant lot next to it that we're going to be impacting.
So these inflated prices, so the uninflated totals, if you were to build it today, yes, and what that would be. Essentially, you're thinking we're gonna have close to 45%, 50% inflation.
Everybody's playing by that same inflated number. That is with everybody's state by that.
With fingers crossed, hopefully that it doesn't end up being that high.
Well, fingers crossed it's not higher. I haven't seen any come in with the lowest.
I mean, we're experiencing this across the state. This is just not us. I've talked to my counterparts in the other districts, and they're seeing similar type of escalation and cost for just the cost of the project from the baseline perspective are going up significantly in the past 4 years.
I mean, last year, Monster we were awarding $8 million sidewalk projects. Sidewalk project.
Yeah, I guess we can all hope for better days with inflation, but I can appreciate the fact that. And I guess that's like midpoint of construction, kind of thing, that what it's escalated to, I mean, you've got. Target date of ending construction in September of 2035.
I mean, you all have to realize too, let's say we submit this project at 65 million without the inflated costs. We say our estimate is $65 million. You get awarded for 65. That's your budget.
No, I appreciate
That, that's it. There's no more money to get. If the project comes in, we go through advertising, develop it. And we find something throughout the development process that plus that estimate. Or you go to advertisement and the industry bids on it, and it's 15 million or $20 million more. You either come to the table with money. Or the project's gone. So I mean, I get the sticker shock, but. When I'm looking at these estimates, I'm thinking about, is this the project that needs to happen? You know, we're gonna try to go for what we feel we need to build a project, and let's check all of it.
No, I appreciate that, you know, living that role, my job as well, but I just wonder if everyone across the state is making these, the same sort of like understandable assumptions for a given project, but if you multiply it across the state, maybe that means fewer things are actually happening. I guess there's not really built into the smart scale process a sort of, we can come back and make another bite of the apple kind of thing. I think that's unfortunate, because what happens is people end up. I'm not saying that's what we're doing, but my own experience is that people end up adding, and you get contingencies on top of contingencies, and before you know, across the state, we're not giving as much work, because everyone's understandably.
Edgy, kind of hogging that.
Yeah, I mean, that's what's happening, 50%. I don't know, I guess between now and midpoint of construction, we would have.
And as you go through these projects, the product development, the goal would be that we buy down some of the risks that are built on that front, on the front side of it.
Understood. Yeah, okay.
Well, that's it for the MPO projects. Now for the Albemarle County projects, we've got the Old Trail, Rio Road, Hillsdale intersection, the other Barracks Road, the county project portion, and then Plank Road down south. To get back to the question you were talking about functional class and traffic calming, we're looking at a roundabout here on 250 at Old Trail and Albemarle High School. This will definitely help with flow of traffic and calming traffic, because everybody's going to have to slow down to go through it. When a signal changes, once the queue clears, you can travel whatever the speed is that you can travel on that road. So this basically makes that lower speed happen all the time. So it also accommodates a shared use path, some sidewalk connections to Old Trail, as well as future connections over to a sidewalk that the high school is planning to build along the west side of their entrance road. So we're going to provide that future connection so they can, once they build it, they can have the crosswalks and all that stuff built as part of the roundabout. This project comes in at like $16 million. So this is a good, really good candidate. It's going to address a lot of the safety issues that are occurring at this intersection, as well as providing good pedestrian access between the high school and the middle school.
Can I ask you a question about that? Since it is such a high pedestrian intersection with all three of the schools within walking distance and a big neighborhood, are the crosswalks raised?
We didn't raise them at this point. We're also not sure what the controls are going to be. We will have active pedestrian controls, and we could consider that once we get to that point in the future. But right now, as the original application, we didn't include that.
What does active pedestrian control mean?
Well, it just means we don't know what the controls are going to be. It's going to be either a rapid flashing beacon or a hawk signal, but we weren't. You've got to do an engineering study, and we wanted to wait until it was funded and we got into the design, and then we'll evaluate it at that time and decide what the appropriate controls are for this intersection.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry, skipped a slide. Any other questions about this one? This is one of a series of 3 roundabouts that the county wants to pursue on this corridor. They've got one at the middle school entrance and also one at Crozet Avenue. And in the past, they did submit one to the east at, can't remember the name of the road, but it was a shopping center to the east of Crozet Avenue. It wasn't successful though, but could be something that could be pursued in the future. All right, this is the Rio Road roundabout concept with the double roundabouts. You've got Old Brook Road coming in on one side, and you've got the northeast, forget what the name of the road is, on the south side, and Hillsdale on the north side. Basically, we're going to connect them with a double roundabout. We are providing shared use path around the roundabout and ramps to tie into the existing bike lanes that are on many of the roads, as well as the sidewalks that are on many of the other roads also. So this one has a really $400 or $45 million for this one. Not as competitive as Old Trail. The safety needs aren't as great. There are some crashes there. So we'll see how this one plays out. Any questions about this one?
Where is this located again? So where Hillsdale meets Rio Road.
Hillsdale Rio Road intersection, the 2 signalized intersections right next to each other there.
What's is that?
To the left.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
This was an application from a study that the county did, and they asked us to actually help them develop the application. The next one is the Rio Barracks Road corridor with the roundabout at Georgetown. It's just the county's portion of the total one. The difference with this one is at the interchange, we're adding a right turn lane and crosswalks, which would allow it to function adequately and address the future impacts as a standalone project. And this one is $37 million.
So the monster one we looked at towards the beginning of your presentation included this as a component of it. Okay.
Correct. Like I said, we can break it up in a couple of different pieces. This is one of the pieces. You sort of have to build the roundabout. You could do that as a standalone, but to do the median work, you have to make some of the other improvements on the corridor. I don't think you could you could probably do the median as a standalone project. I'd have to look at how we didn't analyze it as a standalone project, but could be something we could look at in the future. Biggest thing is by closing the median, you got to provide a place for those those access points on the north side to U-turn, which it doesn't allow for that in this scenario. I mean, in a different scenario.
On the north side, they could just go to the roundabout and come back.
In this scenario, they can, but if you wanted to do just the access management piece, you'd have to figure out how you could deal with those U-turn movements. On the south side, there's a connecting road that gets you all the way to the intersection. So they could actually go back and not have to make the U-turn maneuver. And the last project in the county is the Plank Road. This is just putting splitter islands in the median to relocate some of the through movements and left turns from the side streets down to the next crossover so they could U-turn and come back and make the right. Which basically addresses some of the safety issues we've had on this corridor and crashes that we've had with vehicles making that through movement.
So can I ask a question here for just, I'm having a little trouble reading what all these colorful lines mean. If I was leaving from the west side of 250 on Plank Road, like coming from Batesville, and I wanted to turn left to get back to Charlottesville, I would turn right, do a U-E, and then go north?
Correct. And we were actually adding a wider area on the outside so larger vehicles can make that maneuver. It does include extending this right turn lane into the one crossover at other side of Plank Road and running it back to the intersection where that U-turn would occur.
I'm so sorry, could you say that again?
There's a right turn lane on the outside that's at Plank Road on the northbound side, and it would be extended all the way back to where you would make that U-turn so that larger vehicles can actually U-turn there and stay on the road.
And that means like shuttle buses leaving a wedding venue.
Correct.
Okay, there would be enough space for a 55 to make that.
Yeah, trucks, tractor trailers, I mean, the larger vehicles could, that's what we design it for, so they can make those maneuvers within that paved area.
Okay.
And it provides them an area too. They could circulate to the outside and then accelerate and merge into the main line.
And that's the red line to the south of the northbound.
Correct. There's actually a culvert that we're having to extend right here, just south of Plank Road, to extend that right turn lane, and that's part of this project also.
Hey Chuck, it's Jason here, John, non-voting member. Just a question about the proposed estimates, just bugging me. I was looking at the percent contingency, it seems to be different in every project. Can you just help explain how you come up with those percentages? It's not hardball, just curious.
Yeah. I'd have to defer to L&D because I'm not sure. They look at what the risks are associated with the different parts of it, and they assign a percentage for that contingency to the risk that's involved. And I don't know for sure. I'd have to go dig into the estimate to find out what the criteria is. There's a document that's attached to the application that goes into great detail on all of that. I just don't have that information available right now for the presentation. But if you want, we can get you the information.
It's all right.
All I've got for this one. I will say that we did just get the estimate sent out for let's see if I can find it. For 5th Street. I just received it a few minutes ago. So let me see if I can pull it up and find it.
I can also share. Following the
$79.
Tech committee, we did send out the detailed cost estimates to the MPO Tech committee, and we will also send them out to you while we were waiting on this final one that hasn't arrived yet.
Yeah, I just received it. So we'll be posting it to the application and validating it, but the cost estimate is $79 million for the interchange improvements at 5th Street.
This cost estimate put together internally you got, you have your own cost estimating software, that kind of thing, or do you go out to an independent cost estimate?
We have our own internal work that cost estimating office that is built up at the department that is put given us guidelines and tools for estimating. And we also have an estimator on staff.
And that's what provides across the Commonwealth consistency.
Yeah, everybody's gotta go by that. I mean, I think the smart scale portal itself built in
Has defaults.
default from the inflation, but so it's. And I will say that if any local government body has a concern with the estimate, provided what you feel your estimate is, we're fine with you all on that.
Right, any other comments on Plank Road or Smart City? Oh, there's my comments. All right. Thank you, Chuck.
Everyone.
Thank you.
Number 8, staff updates. We have a couple different ones here. So item A, MPO tech officers, Christine.
Yep, just wanted to notify you that in their past meeting, the MPO Tech voted, the chair of MPO Tech is now Ben Chambers of the Charlottesville staff, and the vice chair is now Albert Karina Plum of Albemarle County staff. It's just information.
And Lauren, you got an update on safe streets and roads for all?
Yes, thank you. I'll start with a little bit of background about the project. So it's called Move Safely Blue Ridge, and it's the
Volume is up, especially.
Yeah, show.
it is the region's plan to reduce roadway fatalities and serious injuries for all road users, no matter their choice of transportation. This is a regional project that covers the counties within the TJPD, Albemarle, Fluvanna, Green, Louisa, Nelson, as well as the city of Charlottesville. The grant comes from the Safe Streets and Roads for All federal program, which supports the United States Department of Transportation National Roadway Safety Strategy. The long term of this initiative is to reduce traffic fatalities and serious injuries by 0 using a safe system approach. I'll mention that the project's process is divided into 4 steps because it covers the activities that we have completed to date and what we're going to be working on in the next steps. So during the month of June, we completed the first step of the project where we identified issues and opportunities through extensive public engagement. We conducted a survey that allowed residents of the jurisdictions to share their safety transportation concerns for the roads that they travel. We held 6 in-person public meetings, 1 in each jurisdiction, 1 virtual meeting for all jurisdictions, and 21 pop-up events that included farmers markets, food pantries, festivals, and other events. Step 2 is currently in progress. Over the past 2 weeks, we have been actively working with the stakeholders from the jurisdictions to discuss the high injury network and coordinate site visits. These visits are now being scheduled and will take place over the next 3 weeks. We will be gathering data and reviewing it in collaboration with the jurisdictions to identify the safety priorities. Step 3 will be focused on developing strategies, which will serve as the lead to the final step, which is the development of the safety action plan. I can take some questions if we have time, and I want to mention that I'll be happy to provide a formal presentation in the future.
Awesome. Any questions now?
No. Looking forward to some of those good opportunities that you all will. Yes.
This is our basically our Vision Zero platform.
I'm sorry.
This is basically our Vision Zero platform.
The Safe Streets and Roads for All.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the targets that you all adopted through resolution of council.
Right, we good. Item C, the December meeting date and time.
Yep, I actually have a couple of updates under this one. In looking ahead at a couple of dates, our October policy board meeting actually falls during the governor's transportation conference. And so I wanted to check of the 5 voting members, if any of you all intended to be at the conference and not here, so that we can check if we have quorum. Okay, so only one will be out, so we'll hold the meeting as is. And Sean, it's up to you whether you attend virtually or alternate or whatever. But we'll keep that on the calendar. Thank you.
August 23rd, so October 23rd, the 4th Wednesday still.
Yes, we'll keep it as it's scheduled. The other one is the December meeting. The policy board meeting would fall during Christmas holiday. And so we would like to propose a change of date and wanted to put that out to you all before sending out widely to the public. MPO tech falling on December 10th and policy board meeting Wednesday, December 18th from 4 to 6. We worked around the revised Board of Supervisors schedule. So we believe that that date is open, but want to confirm that with you all before advertising it. So that would be 4 to 6 p.m. on December 18th. Does that work for everybody so we can ensure a quorum?
I think so, yes.
That you know of right now, at least. Okay, very good. And then Chair Gallo, if it's okay, there's another update. This actually just came in today. I probably, in hindsight, should have mentioned it during the acceptance of the agenda, but another staff update. VDOT is starting the next round of their STARS study. The STARS stands for the general knowledge, strategically targeted affordable roadway solutions. And so they went through a process, a methodology to locate areas that rank the highest for safety and operational needs. Those 3 locations, staff reviewed and made sure that it aligned with the long-range transportation plan priorities, which it does. Those 3 locations are US 29 between Hydraulic Road and Woodbrook Road, US 29 between Teal Lane and Hydraulic Road, the bypass, and Ridge McIntyre South Water Street intersection in the city of Charlottesville. They're just reaching out to all stakeholders, city, county, and MPO to make sure there's concurrence in moving forward. Next steps would be to then detail a scope of work for those studies. So just wanted to share that with you all to make sure there was no large pause or concern that you wanted us to share back with VDOT staff.
What, I'm sorry, what are they doing? Studies?
They're STAR studies. I'm happy to have a VDOT person give an overview of a STAR study.
Safety improvement and operation.
So just here's some land.
Ben Chambers actually gave a recommendation to the city.
So it's like, here's some land and what can you find on it?
No, here's a towards the world.
I mean, a road, yeah, that stretch of road, what's up with it, that's the study.
It's kind of like the pipelines, it's just a road study, look at what improvements can be made.
Is in-house staff or is this a consultant?
It's a consultant.
Okay, same people who did wanted to close the loop off the bypass on 250 East.
We don't need.
Hopefully it's not with it.
Okay, that's all I have.
All right, we'll go to a roundtable updates. We go online first. Mr. Condor, anything from CTAC?
Yes, we had a discussion at our last meeting, and if it were possible, the CTAC would like to be able to get involved in some of these projects at an earlier stage while the concepts are still being developed. At this point, we basically end up reviewing things that are complete. I mean, there's no possibility of change. It's already set in stone. There's considerable expertise on the CTAC, and we feel that we could be more useful if we could get involved earlier. So whether it's possible or not, I don't know, but that's what the message they wanted me to pass on.
All right, thank you. Guess that's one we'll have to think about. All right, Mr. Huber?
No updates here.
All right, and the others. Chuck, did you have any additional items or just the presentation today?
Just a presentation. Sean will cover everything that we have.
Great, Mr. Esky?
Yeah, just a quick note, John just finishing up 3 different studies, one on microtransit, one on bus electrification. And the rural transit needs assessment study has been concluded, presented to the job board. Trying to figure out, we said, when we can present it to the rural, regional transit partnership. Some of you may have already seen the presentation from North Dakota State University. Which was given. Yeah. Yes, it was presented to the stakeholders. And then presented to the job board, so we're trying to figure out how to roll it out. Different, maybe some point to bring it here.
Great,
That's it.
thank you. VDOT, I'll collectively call on VDOT.
I'll mention one item. We are getting started with coordination with localities, MPO, PDCs on applications for the revenue sharing and transportation alternatives program. The pre-application period doesn't begin until May of next year, but these, just like Smart Scale, require some study and advanced work. And to be able to give them their due, and these programs, revenue sharing is more flexible. Transportation alternatives is pretty specific, not only in what types of projects are eligible, but also the cost limitations, which is really makes them pretty challenging. So we did this the last cycle, but did not get started quite as early, and that was one big lesson learned. So communication has already gone out to localities. I think that was last week, and for this area, there's a meeting scheduled on September 23rd at the Charlottesville residency, where our local assistant staff, planning, staff and programming, which is our funding experts, and others will be there to explain the programs, answer questions, and then as there are specific requests for help on projects, we can either discuss them or schedule a time to do that separately with each locality. Maybe will be heavily involved in that process.
Any other items?
Yeah, so hydraulic road improvement, that project is moving along. We got the roundabout open after being closed ahead of schedule. I think the roundabout is working well. When I've seen it driven through there.
As my wife.
That's all I need.
I praise.
Yes. We did close the left front off of hydraulic going 29 north and south on Sunday. I went out and watched it today for about an hour and a half, 2 hours to watch people make the left, which is very concerning that people are not obeying the big signs. And I wrote all 4 corners to make sure the signs are clear, and it is blaring, you do not make the left. Really? Yeah, but the one thing I did notice, the people that were making the left, as I was sitting there watching them, they were all on their phones, and when they looked up to go through, they were like, oh, there's cars coming at me. So they would literally stop in the lane to wait for a break to make it illegal. So we've reached out to VSP and the enforcement out there to see if we can get some people to maybe do some enforcement for that area.
Is that's temporary or?
No, that's permanent.
That's.
That was the solution to the affordable changes.
Yes, that was it, so. We're still adjusting, tweaking some of the signal timing out there, so that'll be one until we get everything back.
Is there signage on the, just
Mask on,
that, what is that called?
a mask on.
Mask on,
Yeah, super bad. It is. The one is kind of, it almost looks like if you're going 29 southbound, it almost looks like you can't make a left sign. So I took a picture of that. I'm gonna give it with them to see if they can move the sign to the 29 to the $5 sign.
Yeah.
So I did not see anybody making the left to go 29 northbound. That was, nobody was making that left moving.
Oh, from hydraulic.
Yeah.
They weren't.
They weren't.
So,
doing it.
to
It was
where-
all going hydraulic 29 south. That's where I saw it. Like within the first 25 minutes, I saw it.
But, and that is the more cumbersome, around the block for now.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and what you could do instead is stay on 250 and take the exit.
Yes.
Except.
Do we have signs at 250 before people get off?
So there's a message board. I did not come from that side of 250. So I need to check that. See, but there's definitely message boards out there.
Trying it today will shock you because it was backed up to the firehouse.
Yeah, I have.
the other day with people trying to go all the way to.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I'm sure you all are aware that that is the center of the universe right there for after getting home again. So, it's been a challenge to figure out how remote one's new route is gonna be to that. But I still have to get the grocery store. I will share one thing with you. Several people have contacted me about the Hillsdale roundabout, and if one obeys the rules, it's perfectly fine. But numerous people, including I, watching carefully, the person in front of me going east on Hydraulic decided to just cut off the person who was coming west on Hydraulic in the proper right turn only lane to go onto Hillsdale. And was like this far, but they missed not having a crash. So they drove across the red brick thing. So please consider some structural things to make that not possible anymore. Even if it's an 8-inch curve or something, just because that's just an accident. That this didn't happen on those first 2 or 3 days, but people just want to go where they want to go. And it's not like they can't just go 50 feet right up and then slide over and go with it.
I don't get to them on that, but I don't know if we're gonna do physically put up any.
I mean, even those delineators that are, at least there's a visible thing that says, no, you're not supposed to do that.
It's probably that way, so trucks, if they need to navigate it based on, because we've reduced the footprint inside of the roundabout. So we'll have to look at that route, take a note.
Thank you.
The thing is, we're working with the city and university and of course Albemarle with the Spontaneous Avenue project for the bill. You gotta change the name of it because it's no longer gonna be a Spontaneous bundle because of the district avenues with this also to be done as a design build at one time. We have also worked with the city to take their Fontaine project to add to this, so all of Fontaine will hopefully be under construction at one time with one contractor. We're working through some issues with that based on the amount of money we got for the city's Fontaine project to review the estimate. So that is coming. The goal is for hopefully all the stuff to come together and we'll start procurement at the beginning of next year with an award sometime in 2026. So that is our next big bundle design build project in the region. We're going to procurement, and then on the 10th of September, we've got the Panctops improvement project, which is the addition of the additional turn lane at 250 and 20 intersection with the median going back up the hill for all car dealerships. I would suggest you are interested in that project to come to the public hearing at the Hilton Garden Inn on the 10th of September at 4:30.
So the Monster Fontaine thing. It's being made, it's made to be giant size as far as cost again, but adding all these different sections together, so.
Yes.
We'll go out of our service. Okay, but at least the plan that we worked so hard to develop, that's approved, that's. No changes in that. It's just.
The thought was that if we went to procurement for the design build, we just that one project wouldn't be of the size needed to bring in competition. So we added 2 additional projects to it to hopefully get a contract with one competition.
The change in delivery, it was postponement for District Avenue, which was supposed to be starting sooner.
No, the District Avenue, I mean, you have real District Avenue just awarded Smart Scale the last round, so this is lightning fast.
So it's still advancing it forward. For District Avenue.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's good to know. Because then everything at 29 and hydraulic will work much better.
Yeah, very much so.
Both routes.
Yes.
That's why I grind my teeth when things get divided down to make them smaller, and then we're told it doesn't work, and so then you have to put them all back together again, and then we're back to the grade separated interchange, which is we've done it right in 2010, we'd all be done. But anyway, I will stop whining now, sorry.
Promises.
Guy, he knows I'm gonna keep going.
Academy, what's going on with Academy, any updates?
The only major update, the county staff are working on preparing revenue sharing and application for the care data, and we want to work with you guys to get those things rolling early.
Okay. Any other updates that we need to call out? Okay. We will go to item 10, additional matters from the public. Any additional public comments, anyone?
If anybody online would like to give public comment, you can unmute yourself.
All right, seeing none, we will close that, and that will take us right to our adjournment. Is there any objection to adjourning today? We will see the materials come out for the cost estimates. I heard that.
Yes,
And then whatever was put into the chat.
yes,
that
I have
was-
both of those noted.
Sweet. All right, well then without objection, we will. We are adjourned.